This week on the podcast, I'm talking to filmmaker Michael Marco. Michael's recently released his feature film, the thriller Blind Blood, and we spend the podcast chatting about that project, how he put it together, what it was like shooting it, some of the trials and tribulations they had on set, and also how he handled sales and distribution. He gives some great advice if you're thinking about making your first feature film or if you're a couple of features in. The film's also had a very successful film festival run and it's even won awards, so it was interesting to hear Michael's perspective on that. Enjoy. Talk to me a little bit about how you got into indie filmmaking.
Well, indie filmmaking kind of became one of those things that I wanted to tell some stories. I felt like I wanted to tell some stories, and I wanted to get involved in the film business somehow. So I did, but it was really just the love of acting started with, and then just the desire to tell stories in the medium of film.
Lovely. And yeah, I should say that. So you're a actor, writer, director, editor. Is that right? Is that your sort of skill set?
Yeah. Especially on this one, yeah, many hats. But yeah, I've been in the business for a little while now, and kind of touched on different fields from production, post production. But yeah, mainly right now, focusing on the directing and the acting as well, and some of the writing and producing too now as well. So
Lovely.
that's
And
about.
those years acting, how do you think they helped your filmmaking?
That's a good question. Being able to be in front and behind the lens is really helping understanding the process of the casting, for example. It's like when you go and you audition for a role, you never really know. Sometimes you feel like you blew it, sometimes you feel like you nailed it, but you really never know. And so being able to do auditions, but also having them for my own project really kind of put things in perspective, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't imagine what it's like to act in your own movie. I think that's very brave. And I wonder, I always asked actor directors this, is how do you direct yourself?
um Well, first, if you wrote the character, you're pretty familiar with them, so you know what you want out of them. So having the writer, director, there is, when you talk and you discuss the scene, whether it's with your director of photography or some of the other actors, you have a good understanding of what you are trying to achieve when you put the words down on paper. So, and honestly, it kind of was a little bit easier for me to be in the picture and directing because I could snap out of it and I wouldn't just focus and just get locked in my own head, which is easy to do sometimes. So having to be in front of the lens and then kind of check at the take and go to play back and see how it works. You also have to have people around you that you trust. Richard Kroll, the cinematographer, was also on board as a co-executive producer. So we have a lot of the same taste. So I would take the time to get feedback from him as well. When I was performing, do you think I need to bring it up a little bit, bring it down? And it was good to have somebody that you can trust, somebody that you worked with, that has got the movie at heart, the best interest for the movie at heart. So you
Yeah.
rely on the people around you.
Yeah. And I guess it's a little bit similar, and I wonder how you handle this. So when you've written the film and you're directing the film, and for myself, I tend to have a very clear moment when I sort of stop being the writer and start being the director, and then start treating the script like someone else has written it, and start ripping it apart, stuff like that. Where do you delineate that, or are you writing on set? Are when does the writer end and the director start?
Well, for this one, it was a little different because we kept rewriting the scenes, as we had the shooting script, if you will. It still changes as you go. It's like you have this idea of what you want or think of what you want, and then you collaborate with people, and it becomes its own thing. It's very organic, visceral thing that just comes to life. And so you jump in it, and once again, you're like, okay, well, this word doesn't work, or it doesn't come naturally, so you rewrite things on the spot, or the direction that we wanted to go with the movie was a little more realistic than the screenplay. The screenplay had a little bit more of the punchlines and zingers and that kind of things that Richard and I decided to strip away because we weren't really, that's not the style that we wanted to do, and everybody else was on board with us. So, but so we would change the scenes almost like before we shot. We'd be like, okay, the night before, 3 days before, like, okay, dude, do we have exactly what we want with this scene? It's like, is that exactly the where we want all that? So you do that, and you hope for the best. So you're gonna roll dice basically, and tweak it as you go, whatever feels natural and whatever feels right.
Yeah. And so we're talking, the film that you're talking about at the moment is Blind Blood, which is the most recent one you've made. So give us the pitch for the film. What's the story about?
The story is basically a look at it's a look at a sociopath and the psychopath, and they just get caught at a certain time in their relation, and how everything is about to fall apart around them. So we follow them into that very interesting journey of how do you handle some situations.
Yeah. And so I know the indie filmmakers, micro budget filmmakers out there kind of want me to ask, what's the budget for it, and what did you shoot on?
Okay, so it's funny because the budget was pretty much. Let me I'm gonna rewind a little bit, Jim. Here, if you allow me. The screenplay was written with the distributors in mind.
Oh, okay, right.
That was what happened when Richard Crowe brought up the idea of possibly shooting something around the location which he owns. I mean, he lives there, and he said, "Can you maybe write something for us to shoot with this location?" I didn't think it was an option. That's not where my mind was at the time either. I wasn't really trying to produce an independent film. But when he opened up that door, I kind of looked around, and even though I've been there, a bunch of times, I never considered this particular location for being in a movie. But now that he brought it up, I was like, wow, it's very unique. And so people always say, location, 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 and I'm like, well, let me think about it. And so I went back, and I had this idea of the intruder breaking into somebody's home and getting busted by the owner. And then after that, you're trying to figure out exactly who's who, what do they know, why is he here, that kind of stuff. And so when I came back with the script, we said, okay, well, let's shop it around. So we had a company who optioned the movie for about four years, and we tried to get it made, and we were talking about a bigger number than what it ended up being. And after a while, we just realized that it might not happen unless we decided to roll up our sleeves and go to work ourselves.
Mm.
And people say don't put your own money, or don't. You don't want to invest. You don't want to get a second mortgage on your house. But it comes a time where you're just, if we don't do it, it's more than likely not going to happen. So when you're asking for the budget, I mean, if you had to put a figure on it, considering everything, I would say that's about a $250,000 picture.
Right.
Now, was that the budget that we spent on it? No, because it was written for this location. We kind of went in thinking, okay, if we can get the budget that we need to make it happen, could we still make it happen on our own? On our own, wondering like, okay, what is it going to cost? How many days are we going to shoot, and all that? But that's when Richard and I kind of, went in as partner and said, okay, let's, we split the different hats people were going to have to wear, which I think is really important to just, in the middle, you take care of the location, the camera equipment, great lighting, and I'll take care of the talent, some of the props, the food, the editing. You'll take care of the grading, and back and forth. But everything has to be, for me, has to be set like right off the bat, so there is no confusion later down the road about what's expected out of anybody. So but by the look of the numbers, considering the equipment we used and all that, and the locations and everything else, I mean that's the number I think would be about right to put it on. But obviously, we own the equipment. The location again was ours, so it was easy to come back if we needed to do a pickup, or even at the end of the day when we had to shoot, you just pull the gate down and don't worry, we don't have to pack or move, change locations, and or company move. Even though it was one location, we utilized different area of it to kind of making sure that it doesn't get too stale. But yeah, so pretty much after that, the number I never really, I don't want to look at those numbers. It's
Yeah.
like I said, okay, well, I know about roughly more or less how much I put on my credit card, but then the hours of work and the contribution from everybody else, from the cast, the people behind the cameras, the dedication. It was just beautiful to see. It was a very small little skeleton crew, but it felt like everybody wanted to tell that story, and everybody kept showing up. And after that, it's all about the writing. How do you write it? I mean, I knew that if I was going to show up, I was going to be there. Did I want to wear all those hats? No, not necessarily. But if it was a matter of having to wear them and getting the thing done versus, chasing that bigger budget for another 5 years, I think we kind of all kind of looked at each other and said, okay, let's try to make it happen on our own, which didn't just happen. I mean, we shot the Louisiana portion, which is a flashback first. Even then, we were like, why don't we just pick a scene or two and figure out if we can make it work? And if we think that we like what we see, then we'll move forward with the rest of the picture. And so thinking about it, I say, well, why don't we just shoot the flashback, which is about 15 pages long, so roughly 15 minutes. If you go by the old rule of 1 page, 1 minute per page. And so we went and shot it 3-4 days, and it was the most challenging scenes because of the logistics. We had 5 characters in one room. We had some weapons that were being discharged, so we had to have an armorer on set at all time. So, and we shot that, and took some time off, went to cut it, and came back. We looked at it together, and we felt like, well, it seems like the few people we showed it to, they seem to really enjoy it. So let's go, full steam after that, and we did.
Wow. So you touched on a few things there, which I think are really good things to think about if you're making a micro-budget, low-budget film. The first is using your own money, which is something that's obviously everyone always says, don't use your own money, don't use your own money. But like you say, with any project, it always comes to a moment where you've got to think about long-term, how long do I want to keep trying to get this off the ground? And could I do this for a lot less, but still make it look like a lot more? The other thing you talked about, which is a really good point, because it's something I always say to filmmakers, is about revealing your budget. So you could have given me a figure there, which I imagine would have been a lot lower, but it wouldn't represent the value of that production that you put together. And you gave me a figure that represents how much it would cost if you paid for all of those things, all those free locations and all those favors to get that film made. So that's brilliant. And I'd urge filmmakers to think the same way. I'm hoping there's probably not a lot of sales agents and distributors listening to this. So this is probably a safe space for indie filmmakers to share budgets, but being careful who you reveal that budget to is super important. And then the other thing you've done, which is a really good thing to do, is shoot a bit of it, and kind of, you could very well have used that to try and raise more finance, but you've obviously looked at it and gone, oh, that's pretty good. We should crack on and shoot the rest of it. So really good tips there. So it's a dark, sort of like a thriller. How do you as a director ensure that kind of mood and that feeling courses through the whole film?
We took it to the American film market, 3 or 4. And we talk to all the distributors out there. So I would encourage any of your listeners that are considering doing a low budget movie like that, to make sure that please go out to those film markets. They have them in south of France in Cannes. They have them in California, like the one we went to, and some others. So the distributors are going there. If you show up, it already sets you apart from, hey, I can just find their number online and reach out to them directly. Because if you think that you're the only one doing that, I mean, they're getting emails and people reaching out to them from their phones often. So going there, meeting with them face to face is a very it's a plus. I think it sets you apart already. But believing in the project, you got to know what your product is, and so across the board. When we went and pitched that other movie, kind of getting the same answers across the board, and the same three questions from most of the distributors that we visited with, which were at the time, what format did you shoot it on? So they wanted film. At the time, HD wasn't even on the market yet. I'm talking pre 2006, pre 2007. So they were looking for 35 millimeter films, shot on film. The second question was, who's in it? So, when you say I'm in it, they're like, okay, but who are you? So, and the third question was, is there any violence and sex or nudity? And across the board, the format, the talent attached to the picture, and the genre was what I got out of it. So when I came back, that's where I was like, what, as a filmmaker, as a director, to go to your question, is can I tackle on a genre that's different than maybe what I would want to do, but still deliver something strong and well polished, and still keep your voice as a storyteller, and don't lose your integrity because you're doing something that is just required uh,
Mm.
by the distributors. So you can take those ingredients and bring them into a picture, and still keep your voice. And I said it's a very challenging exercise, but I thought, why not? Why not try it? And so
Mm.
that's what it came about, is wanting to make a movie that we could distribute, or that
Yeah.
would get distributed, I would say, not that we would distribute ourselves.
Yeah. 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 No, that makes sense. And looking at the market and thinking about what people actually want, super good idea, because you don't want to make something that's never going to sell. I noticed that you've done quite well, and this could be because the film's really good, but you've done quite well with festivals, won awards with it. What would be your tips for film festivals?
That's another good question too, because when we started this thing, I had no desire to send it to film festivals. It wasn't on the list of things. It was, like I said, written for the distributors. So the whole film festivals was like, not, we didn't want to do it, because once again, back in the day, you go to the film festivals to meet distributors. Hopefully, they like the work you've done, and they will offer you the three picture deal that you wanted to get. Back in the day. And but when that doesn't happen these days, you just I mean what do you do? So going out there and meeting is very important. Trusting that you're providing them with what they want, without losing your voice, and your integrity as a filmmaker, is also, I think, a good exercise for independent filmmakers
Mm.
out there that are trying to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you
I'm
feel? Because you're a filmmaker as well. How do you? What about you? What were your strategy as far as going for budget and distribution?
I think we've changed the way we think about distribution, because we've made lots of films in the past. We've just got absolutely screwed over by sales and distributors. Uh, so the last film we made was very much a self-distributed film, because we wanted to see how that worked and how self-promotion worked, and getting our film out there. So what I was going to ask you for, I was going to talk about sales and distribution, and I was going to ask you what was your route into that? What strategy did you go for?
Well, I was interested uh, in the foreign markets, really. because we kind of talked about it, and these days, like you mentioned, the landscape of distribution has changed drastically over the past few years, and you can self-distribute a lot easier. Even if you don't use an aggregator, you can still do it yourself if you can follow the specs, the deliverable specs. So it has changed for us. We were interested in making sure that the picture would be seen outside the US. We wanted to see the foreign markets, thinking, they might be interested in that genre. Of course, you never really know what the demand is at the time when you release your movie. You don't know if the crime thriller drama is in demand or not. That's kind of the gamble. It's like if you're gonna make a vampire movie, you know that by the time you're done, they're gonna want zombie movies, and then you're like, oh,
Yeah,
what do I do with
I've
my
done that
vampire
myself.
movie? Yeah, and there you go. So it's like we wanted to have that kind of extended reach, if you will.
Mm.
So that's uh, that was great because the moment we finished post, Richard actually went out to California to take some time off and visit some friends, and he was there when the film market was going on, and so he said, "Hey, should I go check it out?" Absolutely. I mean, what do you have to lose? And that was around, I believe, September, October, something like that. But we weren't going to start the film festival route until the following year, and it takes some time to submit because you want to do submission early on, especially for a feature film, and so it might take sometimes almost 9-10 months before you even know if you're accepted. So you gotta if that's the route that you want to go, you got to strap yourself in because it's going to be, a little bit of a wait before you actually do the full circle. But with Rich being that in California and running into our distributors and going there, by looking at the trailer, the teaser at the time, they basically said, yeah, we think we can do something with this. And so, of course, we shopped it around. We talked to some other people, but the distributor we went with we felt it was the right fit for us and the product. So, to the guys out there, it's really about what you want to do, what you want out of it. Accolades are nice, so, for sure, uh, but thinking that you're only going to sell your movies on accolades is a dangerous route. I think it's very very challenging. So if you can mix a little bit of both, a little film festival routes and have your distributor okay with you keep doing that because it helps you with publicity and helping spread the word, then why not? It's really about what you want to do, know your audience, know your markets, and go talk to these people. I think it's an important thing.
And so did you sign direct with a worldwide distributor, or was it a sales agent selling to distributors?
No, no, no. We went with them directly.
Oh, you went
Yeah,
there
they
directly.
were.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
did
Because they
you?
were they were there at the American film market, and that's how
Amazing.
we ran into them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm not asking for figures here, but did you get any upfront money, or is it going to take a while for that to come through? How's the financials been handled on it?
I can't really talk about that. We
Okay,
signed an
that's fine.
NDA. Right? No, but I understand. It's what I tell people in this capacity
Mm.
is like you've got to also be realistic about what you have. There's the expectation of the movie winning a bunch of awards, getting picked up. Everybody sees it, and you make a lot of money, and everybody's happy. Well, life doesn't always work out that way. So you know what you got. It's a small indie flick. There's a huge market out there, but there's also a lot of competition too. So you kind of gauge your pros and cons, and try to be as realistic as you can, and do your own part.
Yeah,
Jump in and help with promotions, and I mean, like what we're talking about it, which is great to introduce the movie to a new audience, or to speak with other filmmakers like yourself. It's great. I mean, thank you for your support because you guys are the ones who actually are helping keep things alive, this movie alive, and introducing it to new audiences. So I mean, if it wasn't for you, I don't know where we'd be right now. But thank you for
wow.
what you're doing, man.
It's not just me, but
Yeah,
yeah, I get what you mean, and I do
right.
think, Yeah, I think I've spoken to other filmmakers about this. About there is power in watching other low budget, micro budget indie movies, learning from each other, but also supporting each other. And when you see a post come up, share it. When you see someone's got a film out, make sure you watch it. So when you looking back on Blind Blood, what didn't you know at the beginning of making that film that you know now that you wish you'd have known?
Um, well, for the distribution portion of it, it's been very new. So what I'm learning is that, like I was saying, on this level as an independent filmmaker, uh, it's fun to be in the edit suite. Some people like it, some people don't. It's fun to shoot the movie and get it in a can. That's also a fun process, very creative, collaborating with other people. But it comes a time where you got to roll up your sleeves and kind of jump in. You don't have $50 million budget to do promotions. It's an indie film, so you adjust and you do whatever you can with what you got and jump in. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it, and you don't really realize it, making posts and reaching out to people, see if they're interested, and in watching the movie, talking about it. And but you knock on some doors, and some open, some don't, and you just go to work. Then when do you stop and say, okay, now it's time for me to become creative again? I got to get back on the keyboard. Or do you find a way to manage your time? And it's like, it's difficult, it's challenging for me at times. So it's like kind of a one track mind. And it's like, okay, I'm going to be doing this for a little while and that's it. So yeah, I think the distribution portion and navigating training these waters is it's kind of been a great learning experience, actually.
Yeah, and the bit you've touched on there, which I think filmmakers don't talk about often enough, is I think it's called post-mortem blues, and it's that feeling you get. I always get it at the end of a shoot. So you've shot the film, you have the euphoria of the last day shooting. Maybe a couple of days after that, you're on a high, and then you're kind of, oh, it's over. Obviously, you've got post-production. Then you've got the euphoria of that finally being finished, delivered to a sales agent or distributor. But there is that moment when it is out in the world, and unless you've got something you're working on straight away, and maybe that's how I handle it. How do you handle that kind of sense of loss? The project's gone, it's out there now. What do you do?
Well, it's never really done. That's what I'm
Mm,
finding out. Yeah, I see what you're saying about, you're done, but that usually works. Uh, it's a stronger impact, that feeling that you have of, okay, we created something beautiful together, or we gathered the elements for it, and now it's over, and everybody's going their own separate ways, and we all had a wonderful experience. But then comes the real work. So as you if you're editing your movie as well, you don't have time to stop and think about, oh man, that was so great, and now it's over. I'm sad because you got this mountain in front of you in post that you got to climb, and so you kind of switch. And then, is it really over? You don't know. We had the opportunity to come back and reshoot a scene or two, or do some pickup. So there was this, it wasn't just like a cut and that's it, moving on. So you're still working on it, I'm still working on it, I feel like it. And the reason why is because I love it. it's
mm.
uh, I love the product that we created, I love the movie, I'm proud of it. That's the best thing I've done so far in my life. And no matter what I do in the future, whether I stay in this business or not, you never know how it goes. I'll still will always be proud of Blind Blood, the effort and what we achieved with what we had to work with. I think it's super proud of it, of all the work that everybody put behind it. And it's super proud. So you keep working on this thing. You want to keep introducing into a new audience. The day you lose the fire and you're like, okay, well, I'm done, feel like I've pushed it hard enough, then yeah. uh, can you do both, start a new project and still push for this one? Sure. It's really about how much you want to detach yourself from this project to start something new, or do so it's really very personal question, I think.
Yeah.
How does it work out for you? I mean,
I think what always makes me laugh is we so because I edit my stuff as well, so we'll shoot the film, really intense shoot, like the last one, the Apocalypse Box. It's all set in one location, and it's this big red round room. So it's a very red environment. There's only one like little splash of color in there, and you know it's really intense. You really bond with your cast and your crew. Then you don't see them for a year, and then they come back and they're kind of like, oh, you know, I haven't seen you in ages, but I've been looking at them for a year. I've been sat in that edit suite non-stop, I'm still in that room. Do you know what I mean? Even now,
Yeah,
I'm cutting reels for social. I'm cutting little videos. I'm still in that location, in that room with them cutting that film. So, like you say, it never really ends unless you do sort of let it slip away. But you shouldn't, because obviously you should keep promoting. Um, Thinking back on the shoot for the film, were there any big kind of oh no moments? Were there any? What was the sort of worst moment that something went wrong for you?
You know, it's funny because I don't think so. You know, once we decided we were going to roll up our sleeves and do it ourselves, it was smooth sailing after that. I mean, you
Mm.
got your occasion, I mean, your occasional, problems or whatnot that you will encounter. I mean, I know that there's one of the scenes at the beginning when the guys are coming out of the car, and we start on the close up of the Texas license plate, and we pan across the car, and then the guys come out of the car. Jack comes out, he grabs the gun from the back, and then Raul comes around. It was kind of intricate shot because we have to pull focus, you have to move, and it was a really well designed shot by Richard, and it took about I believe 13 takes to get it done. But my point being, like, it's like the location, the way we had the car and everything, we're like everything looks great in the background. And the moment we decided to shoot, that's when one of the fire hydrant right outside in the background busted. Next thing you know, you got fire trucks
Oh,
and everybody and lights everywhere. And so it's the kind of situation you gotta you deal with, but you wait and you talk to the guys. It's make us they understood what we were doing, so they turn off their lights. But that's been just a kind of problem. It's like I don't feel like we've got into situations where that I've seen before where people leave the project, so you got to recast and then you got to reshoot, or sometimes people pass away. It's like you're doing a project, neat project, indie project like that, and it takes, when you don't have the money, you need the time, and with time things can change very quickly. And so, but no, we were okay. We got what we wanted out of what we had written, and we took the time more or less to shoot it. I mean, we still had shots that we wanted to get, but that was yeah, nothing. I don't remember any big challenges.
mm.
So, but what about you? What is one of your biggest challenges that
Um,
you encountered?
for me, it's silly things, and it's usually location related. I think in the past we've had issues, and it'll be that pressure of time. I mean, um, so you probably obviously if you had that location, that probably takes a little bit of that pressure off because you know how long you can be in there. But when you're shooting on someone else's property, someone's let you in, but you know you've got to be out by a certain time. That's always a tough one for me because in your head, you're cutting shots that you wanted to get, and you're kind of making compromises on the spot just so you can get everything shot in that location. So yeah, that's always an issue, I think. But I think I've got a lot better, or certainly my producer wife's got a lot better at making sure that I give myself enough time in a location for a particular scene to make sure it's all gets shot. Um, so are you half French, half American? Is that what you said, or are you French moved to America?
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it. I'm full French and born and raised in the south of France, and moved to the States in '93, and naturalized later, but now I'm got dual citizenship, and
right.
I've been in the U.S. since '93, Texas for about 30 years, and my wife and I just moved to the Northeast about a year and a half ago, and
Right.
so yeah, yeah, yeah.
So does that French Americanness of you, does that manifest at all in the films, do you think?
Well, I know that Raul, the character I play, speaks a little French out there to kind of add a little, exotic flavor. I don't know, but we did have an international cast. That's kind of funny because the French and me, and then Paula, who plays Trish, she's actually from Argentina, and Margosha, who plays Sarah, is actually from Russia. So we had people, it was great, and it's. I don't know if it helps the movie. I didn't try to play it too much, but Raul obviously he's got a little accent, so I wanted to try to explain a little bit where that was coming from. So that throw a little French in there, but that was about it. I don't think if it's I don't know if it's a plus or a minus. I don't know.
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
mean,
I'm sure.
what do you think when you're making a movie as a British person?
Oh, as a British person, I don't know because the Britain's a funny place at the moment. But I wondered whether there's any of that. I guess you haven't used any French New Wavey stuff in it, but I don't know. Maybe does it come in handy? Do you go to Cannes? Have you been to the film festival? Does the French come in
No.
handy when you? No. All right.
No, 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 no. I mean, there's a Cannes Film Festival and the Cannes International Independent Film Festival that we
Mhm.
won Best Picture
Right.
for Blind Blood, but the actual market, I think the distributors went there, and there's the big Hollywood, for the big guys out there around that time. But I no never went to Cannes to actually the festival. I've been there. It's a beautiful place, so
Mm.
I highly recommend it. It's a good place to be in the south of France for sure, but not for
Yeah.
the film.
So before I finish, I've got one more question before I get to that.
Sure.
Just for so people know, if they want to see Blind Blood, they can see it on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, Amazon and Amazon in the US and the UK and Tubi in Australia, but I think it's available on Tubi as well. It's available on several streaming platforms.
Perfect. Okay. So my last question I ask everybody is: have you got a motto?
A motto.
Yeah. Have you got like a mantra or something you say to yourself that helps you get through filmmaking?
Do the best you can with what you got. That's it. Make it happen. Go out there, do it. Just do it. You can always find a reason not to do things. Now find a reason to do it, and do your research. And that's a little bit longer than the mantra, but just go
No,
and do it.
that's a
Try
good
to
one. I
do
like that.
it.
I like the do the best with what you got. I think is a
Yeah.
very good way to look at things.
If you fail, you fail. So what? Go make another one later. But at least you would have tried. I think it's better to try and fail than wonder what if. But you got to have the right team around you. That's the thing. I think respect, trust, check your ego out the door, especially when you're wearing many hats. Rely on the people that you hired. And I'm doing the quote thing again, but it's like you got to trust these people. You got to like what they do. You got to believe in them. So when they come to you with a constructive criticism or whatever, take the time to listen to them, because sometimes they're right, sometimes they're not. But it's like editing. You edit. You have a reason for every single shot that you put in that sequence. Why do you go to a close up, or why do you stay on the wide shot? You need to be able to explain that. And once you know that, then do the best you got. Do the best with what you got. So, and that's it.
I hope that was useful. If you're interested in listening to another episode that's all about self-distribution and getting your films out there, then you could try listening to How to Make a Profitable Low-Budget Movie on Tubi with Justin Milton. Justin's a producer and director. He's done a bunch of low-budget thrillers and dramas that have done very well online streaming platforms, and he's starting to make a significant profit. So do check that one out.